Welcome to the Ali Maz Show, where we focus on human being and spiritual living with a deep inclination for the divine. Together, we delve into the seen and the unseen. We explore what it means to be well and whole from the inside out. Over the last 17 years, I've been focused on how movement, breath, and the power of the mind can liberate us from the template of our conditioning and carve a path to live a truly authentic life. My hope is that my guests will inspire and expand you to continue to choose the life that is yours. Today's guest is Juri Edwards. Juri is a Tokyo-based entrepreneur, a highly sought-after yoga teacher, and the founder of the groundbreaking Ignite Studio in Tokyo. In 2015, Juri was entrusted with the responsibility of launching the Japanese branch of Lululemon, taking the role of Tokyo maven and brand manager. She contributed to the company's increased recognition in Japan by actively participating in event planning and implementing branding strategies. Juri was also the first Lululemon country ambassador for Asia and is known for creating deep connections through her yoga community in Japan. During the pandemic, Juri initiated a crowdfunding campaign that received support from over 1,800 individuals. The support enabled her to establish an online studio, providing yoga enthusiasts the opportunity to practice from the comfort of their own homes. Juri is a dear friend, a badass yoga instructor who is breaking the mold for conscious women in business in Tokyo and beyond. Welcome to the podcast, Juri.
Oh, I love the intro. Thank you, Ali.
It's so nice to have you here. I just adore the work that you do in the world, in your own community and beyond. And I think where we should start is just sharing a little bit about your upbringing. You were born in Tokyo, but you spent a lot of time in the US, and I'm curious the impact that's had on you as the adult version of Juri. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I was born in Tokyo, born and raised, and until when I was 16. So I was going to a private school from kindergarten, and that was connected all the way to university. So if I stayed in Japan, I could have just stayed in the same school with same friends and same environment. And so when I was in middle school, I just wanted to get out and see the world. And also I wanted to learn how to speak English. So I asked my parents that I wanted to go abroad, and I did a foreign exchange student program in Pueblo, Colorado, actually. And I lived with an American family for 1 year as a part of the family. And that was a very big culture shock coming from Tokyo to Pueblo, Colorado, living with a religious family and going to church and all that stuff. But it was a great experience. And after that, I moved to New Jersey and went to a boarding school. So that's where I graduated high school. And I did my university in Orange County, California. I went to Chapman University, and I studied peace studies. And then after that, I moved to Hawaii, where I started teaching yoga.
It's amazing to think of you going from Tokyo to Colorado with a complete a religious family and a complete culture shock. And I'm curious, I know you really found your way in Hawaii, and I know it's a big part of your soul. What brought you to yoga? How did you find yoga?
The way I found yoga was just like everybody else. I felt like I needed exercise and all that, but I think my lifestyle really changed after I moved to Hawaii. Because until then, I was going to university in college, in University of California, and, living in Newport Beach. And I was pretty much, having one of those college lifestyle. And, but then I moved to Hawaii because I love to surf. And I didn't know anybody in Hawaii, but I just moved because I just always had a dream to live in Hawaii. So I started going to yoga studio when there's no waves, or when I have free time, because I didn't have anybody to hang out with, pretty much. And then I started discovering oh, this is really good, because until then I think I was doing yoga, but maybe like once a week or less. Um, but I think my love for yoga really deepened when I started teaching.
Mm.
Because, like, I don't know if it's the same with you. Like, it's a different level of joy that comes from teaching yoga. I did my teacher training in Hawaii, and I didn't teach for 2 years after that because I had a big fear of public speaking. Especially teaching in English was hard for me because English is my second language. So I was just doing, I think I was doing personal training and I did like personal yoga here and there, but I wasn't really teaching yoga. And I started teaching because the studio that I used to teach for was Core Power Yoga, but Core Power Yoga was launching in Hawaii, and I was one of the opening crew members. So that's when I started teaching. And I remember like I was so nervous. Like I had a class once a week and I would like freak out the day before. I was like, oh my God, tomorrow's my class. What am I going to do? Like I write down everything I say in class and practice in the car. And yeah.
It's amazing how you went from that to being this just incredible entrepreneur, and you've started and ignited so many things within your own city. And for a little bit of a background of how you and I met, I have had the privilege of coming to Japan twice and collaborating with Juri as my first was like, oh, Juri's going to be your translator. She's going to be on stage with you. And then realized really quickly that you were such an incredible teacher and that we were co-teaching this class together.
Yes.
And I've taught at your studio, and you've been really passionate about bringing the work that I do into Japan in terms of Lady Vanna and women's work. So I just think you're such a stand for not just teaching yoga and getting people fit, because I know that's why a lot of people come to yoga. It's why you probably started yoga. I started yoga and then moved into this deeply spiritual path. So can you speak a little bit about how, and I met Juri obviously through Lululemon, but so you come back to Japan, you start working with Lululemon, and then how does the inception of your dream happen? Because you're working at Lululemon, but you're having sort of this brewing dream inside of you that you want to open your own studio. So what did that process look like?
Yeah, so it just kind of came, I don't know how to say it, but anyways, so it came unexpected kind of like. So I moved to Japan in 2015, end of 2015, first actually was a community connector for Lululemon in Japan. I was the first pretty much first person on the ground. No stores, no office, nobody here. And my job was just to wear Lululemon and meet people and create community, basically. And it sounds like an amazing job, so I took it, and I was here for a 3 months contract, so I was going to move back after 3 months. But then I stayed because it took me a while to figure out what I was supposed to do, because there's nobody here, and I kind of had to figure out like what I was doing and what I was, like I got hired as a Lululemon community connector, but before that, I wasn't working for Lululemon. I was an ambassador for Lululemon Ala Moana store. So I was planning on just moving back to Hawaii after 3 months. But then like I started seeing the communities here and yoga here and fitness here. And I just felt like I needed to open a studio because yoga is yoga. Like there's yoga studios and there's great studios, but then like I felt like I had a, sorry, can I start over?
Yeah, of course. You're doing great, by the way. You're doing amazing.
So What was the question?
So we're talking about you starting a studio in Tokyo. Like, why?
Oh, yeah. So I came back to Japan in 2015 as a community connector for Lululemon. And my job was to just connect with the community. And there's nothing started here for Lululemon yet. There's no stores, no office. Nobody was here. And my job was just to wear Lululemon and meet people and create something. So I was planning on moving back. I took a job as a three months contract. So I was planning on moving back to Hawaii after 3 months. But then I was going to all these studios and fitness and seeing how it was back then in Tokyo. I just felt like there's a big opportunity still in yoga. There were some great studios, but then it was kind of like really not beginning. It was a mature market, but it was a very one-sided kind of like very like, people would go practice in India and, do like 90 minutes class or like Ashtanga. And what I wanted to offer was more accessible yoga class, fun, modern, play music. And, like I started teaching at Lululemon events and I would play music and people are like, oh my God, I never taken a class like this before. Like I never listened to this kind of music in yoga class. And I just like felt like there's a big opportunity. So that's why I ended up keep working for Lululemon as a brand manager, and then build my own brand to having a goal to open a studio.
Yeah. And you really did sort of revolutionize the yoga space in Tokyo. Like you said, there was more traditional yoga happening, and you brought something that was really fresh and music and sweat and things that what I noticed when I was in Japan and I got to teach, you and I got to teach some really cool events. One was like 500 people outside of this incredible temple.
That was amazing. Zojoji Temple.
Yeah, it was like one of the most incredible moments of my life, being on that stage, teaching all of these people. And then I got to come back and teach with you in Osaka for a Wanderlust festival. And at the festival, got to see just sort of different styles of yoga and wellness. And you and I have talked about this a lot, where sometimes in the country, what you're seeing is a lot of people are doing these things just to be fit or skinny or meet a certain stereotype.
Yeah.
And I think what you've done so beautifully is you've kind of pushed the narrative away from what this is going to make you look like and how this is going to make you feel. And I'm curious, did you receive any pushback, or did you feel like it took time to kind of change the narrative of why people were coming to yoga?
Definitely. I still feel it sometimes because, in Japan, it's still like yoga is like for women and yoga is for beauty and, so like definitely. And when I first started teaching, because, all the yoga teachers are respected yoga teachers has been teaching in this community for years and years, So I just pretty much came out of nowhere and I started doing this like crazy events with like yoga and wine or like yoga with music. And people are like, whoa, like where did this girl come from? And I'm sure, like I don't know if I felt the pushback because I believed in what I did, what I was doing, like I believed in it so strongly. And I just like, was so clear of my vision.
Yeah. I mean, Juri rolls deep. She's got her own DJ. Like you really know how to run an event and create lasting relationships. And I know that your community has been with you since day one. And you maybe aren't the stereotypical entrepreneur or business owner as a woman in Japan. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, I think so.
And why is that? What makes you sort of different than a typical stereotypical Japanese woman running a business?
I mean, I think I'm so different from other women because I don't have that kind of experience at all. Like I just was clear on like what I wanted to do. My goal was to open up a yoga studio, the best yoga studio. Not only one, like I wanted to open a studios in Japan. I just wanted to spread yoga, like gift of yoga to as many people as I can in Japan to empower. So that was my goal. So like I didn't have I'm not doing this for like, I mean, like I am trying to like run my business. So I have to make money, but like, I think my initial intention wasn't to make, money and, like create this big company, big yoga studios. And I think my intention was coming from like, I just wanted to share yoga.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
we've talked about, yeah, go ahead.
No. So like that's what I was thinking. Like like no, I think many typical women in business in Japan at least have like experience of like working for this big corporations and and coming from that kind of background. And so I don't have any of that. And even when I started working for Lululemon as a community connector, my role as a description says, however many years of experience in PR, marketing and all that stuff. But Lululemon is such a great company at the time because they just saw me as who I am. And they're like, you can do it. And they just believe in me to like run this. So I just learned as I did things, and I'm still doing that. Like I'm just learning as I go.
Same. Yeah, I get asked all the time too, because I owned a yoga studio myself for 5 years in Vancouver, and people are like, well, how did you do that? And what kind of training or school? And I was like, nothing. I had no idea. And I think most entrepreneurs would tell you something similar, where you just have a vision, you see that there's a need, and you really saw that there was a need in Tokyo. You were so clear on vision. You knew exactly what you were going to offer, and you believed in yourself. And it's not to say that we don't waver in our doubt and our belief, but you knew exactly what you wanted to offer. And so now you have 2 physical locations for Ignite.
Yes.
And then can you speak a little bit about the pandemic and the desire? Obviously, everything was going online, but a lot of yoga studios did not make it through the pandemic, especially here. A lot of places had to close. So can you speak a little bit about how you were able to survive through the pandemic and start, I know you did a lot of crowdfunding with so much success to start the online portion of Ignite.
Yes. So, of course, as same as the rest of the world, but Japan, like Tokyo, stopped completely. I remember it was March 27th. It was the first, like, the government said, like, to close all the business for the weekend in the beginning, because we didn't know what it was going to be like. And I was so scared and I didn't know like the seriousness of like what was happening until this lady, my friend who I really respect, she's an entrepreneur. She runs a big company herself. And she asked me, she was like, would you do a private yoga for me? Because I'm really not like feeling myself. And I gave her a private lesson at my studio. And I remember it was like snowing and it's so quiet. And I never seen her that scared or like nervous before. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is like going to be like really bad if she's been like that. But then like after the yoga class, she was like completely back to herself. She was like, thank you so much. Like she was like, I'm so glad I did this. Then she left and I was like, this is like the power of yoga. So I thought that, so after that weekend, of course, the quarantine continued. And I just felt like this is when I need to share yoga. So what we started to do is every 8 a.m. we did a IG live with I had two girls who they're working for my studio that could do online yoga from home, because like Japanese homes are really small, so some of the teachers couldn't do it from home. But we had one girl who could walk to the studio, one girl who had enough space to do online yoga. So we, three of us, every 8 a.m. started doing IG Live through my studio Instagram. And first it was for my members, members to continue doing yoga. But then I think the word spread, and, the numbers started going up and up. And I think it started as like less than 100 people, and it started growing. And after like 1 month and a half, like at the end of the quarantine, every day there was over like 1,800 people watching. So people were talking about it. And Ignite Yoga, we always talk about like inspirational stuff in the beginning. Like I'm sure like other yoga classes are like that, but like I try to tell my girls to talk about like more personal stuff of what's going on in their life. So I think people really like resonated with those talks too. So I hear some people say like, yeah, like sometimes I don't even do yoga, and I just like listen to you guys talk kind of thing. So I think it just really like, it was a perfect time and just perfect, I don't know, like, yeah, it was just like a perfect, I think what made it different was like, we were just like constantly like, 8 a.m. every day, and we never missed a day for like 3 months.
Yeah, the consistency was so huge during that time.
Yeah.
When the world was so uncertain, they knew 8 a.m., I can come on to Instagram or now onto the platform and feel like someone has got me. Someone is ready to guide me. And I think it's just sort of dawning on me now for all of the wellness instructors out there and for people that are listening that really held space during such an unknown time. Yoga really blew up. I think people really were like, I'm going to go insane in my house. Mm-hmm. What can I do to support myself? And yoga really was that thing. And I think when a lot of yoga teachers were sort of, their businesses were going down, there were a lot of yoga teachers that figured out how to pivot, and you were one of them. You really figured out, okay, this is what the community needs. And to have 1,800 people on an Instagram live is like, those are crazy numbers. Like those are big numbers. Yeah. So what does Ignite look like now? A few years later, you've got the 2 studios, the online. How would you sort of describe your business like at this current moment?
So my company just turned 5. So I finished the 5th year, and I have over 50 teachers teaching for my studio. So we are a big crew.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you are the helm of all of it. Do you have a partner? Do you have or are you're number one boss lady, aren't you?
Yeah. So Ignite started with as just myself and my operation manager, Mai. So I'm just more like a vision person. I just like, let's do this. And I just lead, and Mai creates, okay, how kind of thing.
We need those people. I need a lot of those people too. And so it's often the case. The visionaries can see it, but we often need the executors. And I think, I hope that this podcast gives a lot of inspiration for people that want to chase their dreams. And that's always the advice I get, is figure out what you do really well. And then the pieces that you don't do really well, find someone who can do them and execute for you. Yeah. And someone that you can really trust. So how do you
Yeah.
balance the teaching, actually teaching, being in the studio, with the business element? How do you sort of, what's the day in the life of Juri right now?
So this year I intentionally focused on teaching less, actually, because I wanted to make other teachers stars, because I don't want to be the only person that they come to class for. I have many great teachers, so I even events and stuff, like I let them teach and I didn't teach, or like that kind of thing. So um I just, this year I focused on creating a stronger team. um but I teach right now. I teach once a week at the studio and once a week online, and I do teacher trainings and other trainings and stuff like that. So I'm focused on, I guess I'm teaching way less than before, and trainings, and making creating a team, and yeah.
Yeah, it's almost as though you have to start, you know, creating other mini yous.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
people, and I experienced this a lot at the studio too. At first they were just coming for me and Jian, and then it was like, if we take a holiday or we have to travel, and then you see people don't show up in the same way, how can you start to empower your teachers and sort of give them the blessing to step up
Hmm.
to the plate, and like you said, become the star of the show, and you can kind of be on the sidelines
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
and cheering them on. And I really think that's what makes a great leader, is that you're
Mm.
able to say, okay, I want to be, on top of my business, not just in the business, because you need to be connected to your community and feel what your
Yeah.
students need. But then you also need to take a step back and empower your students, as well as really know, because you are the visionary, to be continuously visioning the next phases of these
Yeah.
things, right?
Because it's so easy to get caught in like daily operations, and like when you're in that mode, like you can't see the bigger picture. You like start seeing like what you have to do, like all the tasks that you have to do. But because I freed up the space of like teaching, and I have more time, like I think I'm being able to like see the bigger picture and bigger vision of Ignite. And also, like, my job as a leader, I think, is to motivate the rest of the team, because I have such a big team. And I think like teaching yoga sometimes, like, um it becomes kind of like, I don't know the word, I don't know, like,
Boring. Not boring, but like monotonous, or
yeah, like
yeah.
if you're teaching so many classes a week, it's like, like, and I really want everybody that working for my team to like do it because they want to do it, like they choose to be there, and it should come from their heart. And
Mm.
um like I tell them like the authenticity is the most important thing, so like I don't want them to like be robotic, and like
Yeah.
so like once a month we have a team meeting, and we share like one topic, and like we talk more, we share about like what they're going through and stuff like that. So like I think my biggest job right now is doing that, like
Mm.
motivating, and seeing their possibility and showing them their possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the word I think you're looking for is autopilot. It just dawned on
Yeah,
me
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like when, and
Yes.
I know that teachers get this, it's like when you're teaching too much and you're not even, it comes so second nature, which can be nice,
Yeah.
but then when there's no soul to it, you can kind of feel, I think that teachers know that when you've crossed that threshold where you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, I just taught that class, but I wasn't really
Yeah. Yeah,
there.
totally.
And that's when you know it's time to take a break. Um,
Yeah.
but something I love that you bring to your community is this essence of vulnerability and sharing. And I think that was maybe new to the yoga community for, in Tokyo. It's like you go to a class and then you leave, and it's sort of this cut and dry experience. And
Yeah.
bringing in this element of sharing and authenticity, and and even for myself teaching there, it takes a little bit, right, to get the community to share. And I'm curious, the vulnerability piece, the transparency piece, the sharing, kind of that more heart-based stuff. Why is that so important to you?
I mean, I think, like growing up in Tokyo and seeing how Japanese people are, that part is what we need, like being vulnerable, because living in Tokyo, like you have to be like certain way, like Japanese, like you have to be certain way, like Japanese women, you have to be certain way, like you can't do this, like, and I think it's like that in yoga too. Like as a yoga teacher, you have to be this way, or like yoga teacher should be this way. And I think in Japan, many people don't realize that they are so caught up in those shoulds. But I think that that's the power of yoga. Like it's, like peeling your layers off of you, like you become who you are at the end of the class. And that's what I love about yoga. And that's what made me different, of like, being able to connect with myself. And because it's, so that's what I wanted to share through yoga. And the quote that I love is, I remember like when I started teaching, like I was so nervous, but then like this quote that made me change the way I see things is, that Maya Angelou quote, like people will remember how you made them feel. What was that? People forget what you said, but people will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that really like stick with me,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like, the first time I got asked to teach in Japan, it wasn't through Lululemon. It was through a different company, and they wanted me to come and teach beauty yoga. And I was like, oh yeah, like inner beauty yoga. And I like created this whole description, and she was like, no, beauty, like physical beauty yoga. And I was like, oh, that's kind of like the opposite of what I'm about. I'm more about the inside. And, it felt to me a lot like the community was, more about the physical gaining. And instead of that, you were asking people in your classes to feel and what it felt like to be in community and connection and making eye contact and sticking around a little longer after class and being together. And I just feel like it was so revolutionary. And I know for you, being a leader like that, anyone that's a leader in anything, I bow down to, because it just takes so much effort. But to be a leader in feelings and a leader in vulnerability, that takes a different kind of person. And, when you started Ignite, did you feel like it was challenging to get people to open up? And
yeah, definitely. So because, I started Ignite before we opened the, I had to train teachers, because our Ignite Yoga, we all teach the same method, Ignite Yoga. We have like 5 different classes, but I had to train the teachers first. And one of the things I did first was giving them, I offer this 2 days workshop about finding your authenticity. So that's where you like kind of, we do yoga too, but we do a lot of like development work where like you do like find core values and just like talk about yourself in front of people. And that was so new to Japanese people. They like freak out. They're like, whoa, even like the introduction part in the beginning, like some girls would start crying because they're not used to looking inward. So it was so powerful. And, I see the difference in people like after those kind of work. Yeah.
Yeah. And as teachers, we can only really take people as deep as we've gone ourselves. And I think for you, being a leader for the women who work at your company and your students, you've had to do a lot of your own self-development work in order to be able to be such a powerful guide. And I'm curious, like, you know, yoga, for a lot of us, it starts with the physical. We want to get fit, we want to get flexible. But over time, yoga starts working on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Peeling the layers back. And all of a sudden, the practice goes from something that's so physical into something that's more mental, into something that's more emotional, into something that's spiritual. When did you start feeling that shift for yourself in your practice, you know, like being in Hawaii or like going to core power yoga to really being like, okay, I'm strong and I'm flexible now from yoga, but that mental shift, the emotional shift?
I think, to be honest, like it's after I moved back to Japan, because I had to go through a lot of transition. I was unsure of what I was going to do because I just, I was planning on going back to Hawaii and I left everything there and I just ended up moving here. And I said I was certain of like opening a studio, but there's nothing certain about that. You know, like I knew it in my heart, but I didn't know how to, and I didn't know, I didn't have, it's not like I had like money to do it. So like, but I just kind of like, I had left my perfect life in Hawaii and moving here, and it was just so scary. So when I was going through a tough time, I really like yoga and meditation really, really helped me. And I think that's why I like this like feeling of like need to share the power of yoga and meditation comes from for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That lived experience of how the practice gets us through. You know, you show up onto the mat feeling one kind of way, and then on the other side of the practice, usually there's more space and there's a little bit more, hope again. And for you as a leader, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure it's an assumption, but I think it's probably true because we all feel this way. There's a lot of self-doubt that goes on, or like just how am I going to get enough money to do this? How am I going to keep this running? Now I'm responsible. I mean, for you, 50 teachers, how do you manage your mental health and sort of the doubts and the thoughts? Like, I'm sure you go to the yoga mat, but do you have any other ways that you work with your mind?
Yeah. Like I love yoga, but I think, I love just like physical activities, you know. I'm a runner and I do a triathlon too. So for a while I was running more than yoga, even when I was, like I'm already teaching as a yoga teacher, but I was running more than yoga, which is like kind of bad, but so like physical activities definitely helps me. And also when I feel that kind of like doubts, it's always there, but when I'm feeling more than usual, I know that's when I'm not sleeping enough or resting enough. So I go to bed early or simple stuff, or I take a short trip outside of Tokyo because being in nature is huge for me. Yeah, that kind of small things. I say, I call it my soul practice, like this practice that like makes my soul happy. Like whenever I feel like unbalanced and not feeling myself, then I just like go towards one of these practices that I think is good for me.
Yeah, it's so important. I think for yoga teachers too, listening to this, I thought this way too when I started teaching yoga, that I was like, I needed to be on my yoga mat every single day, and it needed to be this perfect thing. And, movement and consciousness, we can find those things in other practices. And I actually think it's important for us as teachers to find other outlets, like for you, running or surfing. For me, it's like dancing, and well, I surf too, but not very well. So it's not as like relaxing or enjoying because I'm still scared. But this idea that we can find our quote unquote yoga through other mediums, as well as nature, myself too, is like I especially early days when I opened the studio, we were in Vancouver, and I would go leave the studio between classes and go for a trail run by the river, sit by the river. And I just felt like nature would give me the answers that I was looking for on
Totally.
days where I was like, how are we going to pay the rent for the studio? Or how are we going to make this all happen? And feeling this overwhelm, changing the environment, getting into nature and feeling that sense of calm and tapping into it. And that's sort of, to me, like my definition of universal consciousness or God or the divine is like, for me,
Yeah.
is nature. And I'm curious if that's similar for
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I have a lot of hobbies. Like I love surfing and, snowboarding and this and that. But I forget to, sometimes I practice yoga or like I run because I want to like be better at it, or, like I think fun and joy are different. So I think being in nature gives you joy, like, being able to be present.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think it's so powerful.
Mm. Where do you go to when you need mentorship? Like you said before, you're learning as you go, and me too. Do you have people in your life that you can lean on in a business sense that you can say, hey, I'm expanding, or where do you go for that type of advice?
Yeah. I have some women that I can talk to because I think women in business, experiencing a different stuff than men. But I also have like some of the entrepreneurs that are men too. So I think like running a business is a lot harder than I thought. Like it seems like everybody's doing it, but it's it's difficult. So I have a lot of luckily I have a lot of people that I can talk to about, and also I have yeah, like I have a friend who he actually lives in San Diego, but he is like my brother to me. So like I can tell him anything. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't know what that means, and he like teaches me. So like, like I have that kind of people.
Yeah, it's so important because I think, um, when you're going after your dreams, you have this strong vision, but there's so much to learn along the way. And um, being a woman in business too, it's sort of this double-edged sword. I mean, I think sometimes not as much anymore, but when I was younger, running a business, I'd always felt like I was being treated differently, or like I was
Mm.
stupid, or like a little girl. And what do you know? So it took me a long time to really feel confident and kind of release a lot of imposter syndrome and not feel like I felt like I had something to bring to the table.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes it's important to have these male allies, like male support that can almost vouch for you, even though that sounds so stupid and we shouldn't need that. But I felt
Yeah.
like I needed, I had a male business partner, and it was like almost made it feel more legitimate for some reason. Or, we would go to the bank, the two of us, and the bank person would only talk to him, or at the
Yeah.
lawyer and they'd only talk to him. And I'm like, hello, I
Mhm.
exist,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
feeling that frustration. But for me, it motivated me as well. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if it's similar for you in terms of like being a woman in business and how you've been treated. Uh,
Yeah. Definitely. I think also like yoga, and I run a yoga studio, but my studio in Harajuku is above Lululemon store, which is the I think the globally the Lululemon having the third party studio inside of the store is like the first time they're doing that for us. But anyways, because of that, people just look at me as a director of Lululemon Yoga Studio, even though
mm,
it's a completely separate business. So, and they think that I have like somebody who's like backing my business, and I'm just like a director of a studio or a director of Ignite Yoga, and I'm like, no, it's my company, and especially like they see me as like my yoga teacher, this like wellness person. So they don't see me. It's almost like sometimes I feel like I'm not taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's like put a woman in business, and then the business happens to be yoga, you know, and maybe not so much anymore, because obviously the yoga industry, wellness industry has grown exponentially since we both started. So there's more maybe validity to the industry itself. But I think in the beginning, it's like there's like this doubt, like, oh, it can't just be you doing this
Yeah.
thing. And you are like, no, it is literally just
Yeah.
me doing this thing and creating this thing and making it all happen. And, you know, not every yoga teacher wants to own their own yoga studio or can run their own business. You know, I think it takes a certain few that can kind of handle both. And that's why I've always greatly admired that not only are you an amazing teacher and student, but you also are an incredible business person. And the way you're able to marry the two is such a delicate balance. Really, not everyone can do it, and not everyone can do it as gracefully as you have. Like, you've truly built this empire, you know, with your yoga studio in Japan, where, you know, kind of all on your own. I know you've had support, but to hold the vision is like, it's just incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have moments where you feel like you know, can really show up for your success and go like, wow, I did that? Because I think the plight of the entrepreneur is like, okay, well, what next? Do you feel like you take the time to acknowledge yourself?
You know, lately, like I'm feeling, like I'm actually feeling that way a lot, like in many moments, because I think my company turning 5 was a big moment for me. And this past 5 years, like 6 years since I, you know, like doing the training teachers, because those teachers are still with me, and all of us as a team, just like we almost like put our head down and just like was like going, you know, like trying to make the studio work and like trying to survive through COVID and open another studio. And just like all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, it's been like my company survived 5 years and it's doing great and making profit. And that moment I was just like, wow, like this 5 years, like I'm super grateful for like all these things that happened. And you know, the team is just huge now. Like it started as like me and and started teaching like 10 teachers, and now I have all these people that wants to be a part of us. And we have 50 teachers teaching for my studios, but outside of the physical studio, we have a Ignite Yoga Institute where they did my trainings and still want to teaching yoga outside of Ignite Yoga Studios. We have like over 100 teachers. So we're a big team. And whenever I, you know, take one of the teachers' classes or like just being inside of the studio, I'm like, whoa, this is like a crazy journey, you know?
Yeah. From coming back to Tokyo and saying like, oh, maybe there's a need in the market. Like I could do something here, to seeing 100 teachers teaching in this sort of modality that you've created and a style that you've created that obviously has had such an impact. I think we really need to take those moments as entrepreneurs, because they're so fleeting, you know, and we're almost obsessed with, but what comes next and what comes next. And you sometimes focus on all the things that need improvement or fixing versus looking back and say, wow, I did that. And to show up for your success. Yeah. It's remarkable.
Because I think, you know, like when I said I had a vision to open a studio, and I would like, you know, I remember like pitching to Lululemon, head of Asia Pacific. I asked him 3 times, like, we should do a yoga studio together because we need more yoga studios, like cooler yoga studios in Japan. And he said like, no, Lululemon, don't do that. You know, like he like said no like 3 times. I was like, fine, I'm going to do my own. Like, I don't know how to, but I'm going to do it. And I had this vision, but that vision compared to what I have now, like what I have now is way better than I ever imagined it to be.
Yes,
So
it's such a good point, because I think sometimes when we're getting a no, like, no, that's not going to work, and then it ends up working out in a way that was way more aligned anyways. And so trusting where the no comes in, and it's like, oh, okay, well, if it's not this, like, it could be something else. And letting those no's sort of motivate you to do the thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyways.
yeah.
And that's what I love about you. You're like, I'm just going to do this. And,
I don't know about you. I don't know if you're going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And it takes courage. This path takes so much courage. And I think, when I look at really successful people, I often create this story like, oh, they must just like feel so confident. And, but then when you kind of peek behind the curtain, I think everyone would say the same thing. Like, no, I was scared shitless when I did that.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know what I was doing. Or, I think of us on that stage in front of the temple, like at night.
Oh my God.
We had these traditional Japanese drummers, and we had like the lighting was like at certain timing, and or the microphone strapped to our face, and it's just like, okay, it's showtime. It's like that's what life feels like sometimes as an entrepreneur, is like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna show up for the occasion.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny.
And I love,
it was so funny.
Yeah. And I love that, we had just met, and there was so much implicit trust. I mean, when you work with a translator, I don't speak Japanese, so I was just saying a bunch of stuff. I'm like, I don't know what Juri's saying. I'm hoping she says what I'm saying or something like it.
Explain everything, like 10 minutes, the light go this way, and I had to explain what's gonna happen throughout the class. Like we did that full class during the rehearsal, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Juri's like not only translating, co-teaching, she's like directing like a team of people. She's got a microphone standing on the stage. I was like, this woman is a badass, and people really respect her and are listening. And then when I came back a year later, I got to teach at the studio and share. We did a women's workshop and share with women and have these really beautiful conversations and open up maybe dialogue that doesn't always happen in those spaces. And I just love that your heart is in that same place as me, to inspire women to love themselves and to accept themselves and to, move their body, love their body, but not for the reasons of just looking good. And I think you really have changed a lot of that narrative in your communities.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so cool. So as we come to a close, I'm curious, and maybe you get this question a lot, but what is your advice for,
oh my gosh,
for specifically for yoga teachers that want to expand their business? Because I think this is really where you shine, is you are a teacher, you want to build community, and you've expanded in such profound ways. So what would you tell a yoga teacher that wants to take the next step into creating more online business or content, or maybe an actual brick and mortar studio?
Yeah, I think what's important as a yoga teacher, because sometimes like you have like self-doubt comes in, like, am I a good enough teachers, or like, do I know enough? And I think a lot of yoga teachers do is like, just like take workshops, like take this training, and like they like do all this input and they forget to like output. But I think when as a yoga teacher, what's important is like, just experiencing the power of yoga yourself, and knowing the power of yoga, and is sharing, because of that, like you should share. I guess like what I'm trying to say is like why you want to share yoga. Like intention is so important, right? And we all, I think yoga teachers are teaching because they have experienced that transformation themselves. And I think you forget your personal experience when you're taking all this informations and educations from outside. Like, I think what's important is taking all that information and learning from outside, but kind of like making it your own through mixing with your what you went through.
Totally. I agree. And
Yeah.
I give a lot of my trainees that's the same advice of, you're going to come back after yoga teacher training and you're going to be all jazzed up and excited to teach. And then you get back into the real world and it's scary because you're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, well, what do I have to offer? And, no one is you and that's your power, right? Like you
Yeah.
are a unique individual. You have a unique essence to share with the world. And the way yoga has changed your life is the point in which you teach from, because we all have our sort of inception story with yoga and how it's changed our life. And that story has to be the guiding light and why we teach. And, but yeah, we forget that sometimes too. I'm guilty of it too. And even when I kind of come away from my practice for a little bit and I go to a class, it could just be like a random class. And I'm like, wow, yoga is amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. Like 17 years later, 17 years of teaching, I'm like, wow, yeah, like yoga is like, it's like really something to this. We forget, I mean, at least I do. I forget all the time. And then coming back. And so, yeah, it's like just remembering you have this unique perspective and everyone has that unique perspective to share. Yeah.
I think like your authenticity is like the power,
Totally.
So,
yeah. And that's what keeps you going on the challenging days, is you want to bring it into the world. Is like the world needs it, more. We say this all the time. It feels so cliche, like now more than ever. But I don't know about you, but coming back into in-person classes and retreats and trainings post-pandemic, it was like, whoa, we have been alone for too long, trapped inside of our houses. We need community. And so pre-pandemic, I was like, the yoga world is so saturated and doesn't matter what I'm doing, blah, 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 all these stories. But then coming back into in-person experiences and being like, whoa, okay, people need this. And it, they need it in Tokyo, they need it here in Los Angeles and all over the world. And there's space for all of us, for sure.
Definitely. And I think it's even more exciting than before COVID, because we, learned the online, like the possibility of like online training. And, because of that, we can collaborate with like other teachers like you. And, like, I think COVID also like brought us closer.
Yes.
So, what I'm excited about now is like having guest teachers in Japan and creating like experiences so that, people in Japan can see the outside of like what yoga is like outside of Japan. Because, there's so many good teachers outside of Japan and in Japan too. But, yeah.
Well, I'm always ready. I'm like, you tell me when. I love Japan so much. It's such a special place for me. I just feel so amazing when I'm there. And I love collaborating with you. So I know it's going to happen again.
Yes.
Juri, where can people find you? Where can they find Ignite? Where can they learn a little bit more about you?
Yes, my Instagram is Juri Ko, Jurikoo. And Ignite Yoga is 2 studios in Tokyo. The Instagram is Ignite Living.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Juri. It's so nice to catch up.
Thank you so much.
So inspired by everything that you're up to. And I'm just so pleased to share what you're up to with the world.
Yay. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.